Hey friends, it's Len here at 1A Auto. Today we're working on a 2011 Ford F-150. We're going to be replacing the steering shaft. It's going to be a fairly easy job. I want to be the guy that shows you how to do it. If you need this part or any other part, you can always check us out at 1aauto.com. So there's going to be two mounting bolts, one that mounts down onto the power steering rack down here, right down here where my screwdriver is. It's on the lower end of the intermediate shaft. And then we have the upper one. That will be located right here on the upper end of the intermediate shaft. Okay, so to remove this, we're going to have to use a 13 millimeter, and we're going to turn them to the left until they're completely out. And then that'll be how we remove it. But first, we have to go ahead inside the vehicle, and I want to show you something that's very important. Okay, so we're inside the vehicle now. Something to pay special attention to is if you're going to be removing something with the steering system, like the steering shaft, there's going to be nothing that's going to hold your steering wheel from being able to turn at that point unless you have it in the locked position, which even while the key is out of this particular vehicle, it doesn't lock. So what I want to make sure is once I remove that steering shaft, this won't be able to spin because there's a clock spring in here, and if it spins out of control, you could damage that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use something as basic as a bungee cord. You can use a strap, or even if you have the tool that's specific for it, it holds the steering wheel. Whatever you need to do to make it so the steering wheel can't spin. I'm just going to take my bungee cord. I'm going to go down to the brake pedal, little shaft there. I'm going to go up around my steering wheel a couple times here, being careful not to cause any damage to the steering wheel itself, obviously. Then I'm going to bring it back down, lock it in. Here we are. So the steering wheel can still move a little bit, but it's not going to spin out of control, right? It's not just going to keep spinning and then we're going to be like, oh no. So that's going to go nowhere. Now we can go back outside and we're going to continue removing that intermediate shaft. So now we know that the steering wheel is nice and secured. It's not going to spin around all crazy on us, break the clock spring, cost us a whole bunch of money. I'm going to use my 13 millimeter socket on my ratchet. I'm just going to turn this to the left. Should break free. Here we are. If you have access to an air gun, probably be super helpful. It won't take all day. But anyway, I'm basically gonna get this thing so it's all the way out, and then I'm gonna just put it in a couple more threads just so it holds it in there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and remove the lower one. So located right at the bottom of the intermediate shaft is the lower bolt, which is a 10 millimeter head. So you can use your ratchet with a socket, or you can go ahead and use a ratchet wrench or a regular wrench. Use your preference. You do you, boo-boo. So I'm gonna go ahead and get up in here. I'm gonna try to start it with a 10 millimeter ratchet wrench. I like to keep multiple tools at my disposal. Oh yeah. So I'm gonna turn that to the left. I'm going to remove it completely. There's the bottom bolt, 10 millimeter. The top one had a 13 millimeter, so they are different. Just set that there. Okay, so I've got the bottom bolt out now. I'm going to come back up to the top. I'm going to remove the top bolt. Like I said, it's considerably bigger than the bottom bolt, as you can tell. So pretty good odds you're not going to be able to mix those up. I'm going to take something like a small hammer. I'm just going to kind of bonk this steering shaft down away from the upper steering shaft. If it doesn't seem like it's moving like that, sometimes what people like to do, let's see if I can find it. Okay, there's a little slit right along here. You could try to stick something in there like a screwdriver or a pry bar, try to separate it a little bit. Maybe that'll help your penetrant work its way in. That's up to you. I'm just gonna grab a bigger hammer and I'm gonna try that. The reason why I'm starting at the top and not the bottom is because when I'm banging like this, I don't wanna be driving the shaft up. Hold on, I'll explain it to you when I'm done hammering. It is coming off, it's just taking its time. There we are. So I've got that removed. The reason why I started with the top rather than the bottom, firstly, of course, because it's easier to get to, but secondly, because if I started with the bottom and I was hammering up, I'm gonna be going bang, bang, pushing this shaft up as well, right? Assuming that the steering shaft is frozen. If it's not frozen, you know, the shaft's gonna be able to compress and do its thing, but there's probably a pretty good reason why you're replacing that shaft in the first place. More than likely it's frozen. So if I start hammering from the bottom up, I'm gonna be driving this shaft up, which is gonna cause issues further up down the line, or up the line, I guess you'd say, not up down the line. You know, possible airbag issues or anything like that. So let's just avoid that 100%. We took off the part that's gonna cost a whole bunch of money, and now we'll go ahead down to the bottom. We can either try to get this from up top, hammering upward, or we can go underneath, use something like you know, a pry bar or a long chisel of some sort, and try to bang it up. So I'll see if I can reach it like this. If not, we'll just raise the vehicle and get underneath. Almost there. Okay. And down in here. There we are, friends. We removed our old shaft. Now we're going to match it up with our new one, and we'll go from there. Okay, friends, quick product comparison for you. We have our old shaft out of our 2011 Ford F-150. I just removed it. We have our brand new quality 1A auto part right here. As you can tell, they're both the exact same. One might seem a little longer than the other. That's okay. It compresses. So what you'd like to notice is you have a bolt hole here, a bolt hole there. This is the big side, okay? Turn it. One side's threaded. Perfect. Next, we'll turn them around. Oops. There we go. We've got a smaller bolt hole here, right? Because we had two different size bolts. Flip them. Sorry about the noise. Threaded side. Perfect. You need to have one side that's threaded, right? So, as you can tell, they're both pretty much the exact same. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be great to put in this quality 1A auto part. So if you need this part or any other part, you can always check us out at 1aauto.com. Okay friends, so now what I did is I got that intermediate steering shaft out. And what I want to do is I want to put a little bit of copper never sees right on the shaft. Just kind of like that, okay? I can work it around. Some people say do it, some people say don't. It's really up to you. The reason why I do it though is so someday if I have to take this back off, maybe another 100,000 miles or however long it takes for it to wear out, or if I have to do another service, I'll be able to get it off nice and easy. So I put it on the top side and I put it on the rack side. And then once I have that all on there, I take my two bolts that I removed and I put on a little bit of thread locker. I have access to red. Normally I'd prefer to use blue, which is like a medium strength. Red is super strength, but I do want to use something. And so red's what I have, so red's what I used, okay? So now what I would do is I would just grab my shaft and I'm gonna slide it on there. But first I need to clean off my hands so I don't go ahead and make a mess on everything. Okay, so here's what we're gonna be looking at. On the shaft, on the rack, there's gonna be a slot going through it, and that's where the bolt's gonna go through. So here's where the bolt comes through this. So you wanna make sure that this lines up with where the slot is, where your bolt's gonna go through. It's gonna come through this end, and that's where it's gonna be tightening up in. So we're gonna go from this side, right through, and tighten it on. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the arm down in there, or the shaft, I should say. I'm gonna get it down in there, and I'm gonna get it set up so everything's gonna line up. And then I'm just gonna bring this, I'm gonna slide it down onto the shaft, and once the hole's lined up with this, I'm gonna put my bolt through. All I'm gonna do is start it. I'm not gonna get too far, but at least a few threads in. And then I'm going to grab my upper part of the shaft and I'm going to try to extend it up and get it lined up with the upper part of the shaft up here. Okay? So for now, while I'm trying to get it in, I'll just condense it. Bring it down. Let's see if I can get my arm in here. Okay, I'm in. I'm going to get the shaft lined up and then I'll get out of the way. There we go. I'm just shaking it and wiggling it, trying to get it down. I'll take a look again. Looks like it's getting close, but it's not all the way in. So I'm gonna grab a nice small hammer. I'm gonna try to go on the ear. See if I can see. I'm not hammering very hard. I just want to go far enough down that the bolt can go through. So now that I've got it that far down, I'm going to check it with the bolt. I'll see if I can get the bolt through. If not, let's push it down a little further. I remember I used the small bolt in the bottom, or I removed the small bolt, so that's what I'm going to use again to install. I'll stick it down in here. See if I can find the hole. Okay. Feels like it's still going to need to go down a little bit more. There we go. I got it started in there. Now I'm just going to go ahead and snug it up. Using my 10mm ratchet wrench is easiest for me. All I had to do really was just, I used my mirror to try to see through the hole in the shaft and the hole in the power steering rack shaft and try to line it up. Whether it be you have to push the intermediate shaft up or down, that's something you're going to have to try to figure out with your mirror or however you want to do it. For me, I just had to go down a little further. Okay, I got that a little loose still. I mean, if you wanted to, you can go ahead and tighten that up because it's really not going to affect too much up top here. But generally speaking, I don't like to try to tighten anything up completely until I have both bolts at least started. So now I'm going to grab the upper part of my intermediate shaft. There we go. Got the upper part of my intermediate shaft. I'm just going to try to line it up with the upper part of the upper shaft. Okay. So I'm just trying to put the shaft on here. Here we are. Got those two holes lined up the best I can. I'm going to take my upper bolt. Got my little dab of thread locker on there. It's your preference if you want to use some or not. I would definitely recommend it. Turn that in by hand. Goes in nice. There we are. I've got that bottomed out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish bottoming out the lower one, and then I'm going to torque these down. Okay everyone, I've got my torque wrench set to 22 foot-pounds. That's the torque for the upper and the lower bolt. I'm going to start with the lower. I'm going to be using my 10mm socket. If you're lucky enough to have a shorter torque wrench than this, well, good for you. This one right here is just going to have to work. It's what I've got. I'm going to give it a try, see if I can get it on the bolt down there. Of course, this time, let's see. There we go. Okay, got it on. Let's see if I can get this to 22 foot-pounds. There it is. That's the lower. If I can get my socket off of here. I'm using a 13 now. I have an extension. You can use whatever you need to do, but the torque is 22 foot-pounds. There we are. So we've got those torqued down. Now we can go ahead and relieve our tension from our steering wheel. and we should be good to go. Okay, so I'm just gonna relieve tension. There we are. Feels great.
Thanks for watching. Visit 1aauto.com, your place for DIY auto repairs, for great parts, great service, and more content.